Hi, my name is James Skeb, and I just finished up my four-part plus introduction video series on my Xbox 360 video game collection. And I thought I would, given what I've talked about, I thought I'd kind of do like a wrap-up or uh, conclusion slash where I think the 360 is going and what just my general kind of thoughts on 2+ years of ownership. Um, so in my introduction, I kind of talked about 360 was my first Microsoft Xbox console. Still got my original. Hasn't read Ring of Death on me yet. Um, and I haven't really felt any need to go back to the original Xbox collection. Part of that is just because I didn't really know anybody that had one of the original three Xboxes. Maybe some roommates that I had in college had one, but I wasn't really friends with those guys. So I don't really have any fond memories of playing the original Halo on Xbox with my friends. I don't really have any of that nostalgia going for me. So I haven't really felt the need to go back. There's been a couple times where I've thought, this game came out on the original Xbox. I think I might want to play it. They released it on Xbox Live Marketplace, so I can play it on the 360. But I just never ended up picking it up. So, and that kind of makes me a little afraid because like the 360 doesn't have that good of backwards compatibility with the original Xbox game. You can play some games, but clearly it wasn't built with that in mind. So I guess thinking about the next console that Microsoft's going to come up with, I'm a little afraid that I'm going to run into an issue where I've got these 360 games, a handful like Lost Odyssey and maybe Gears of War 2 and Bioshock, Mass Effects. But these are games that I'm going to want to play again one day, and I'm afraid that I'm going to run into this situation where there's just not a Microsoft console that will support these games, that will let me play them. And so from the beginning, that made me really timid. I kind of lost sight of that halfway through, and now that I've stepped back because I've been playing more PlayStation games, the original classics on PS1, my PSP. I've started thinking about that again. I've gone back to buying more games for the PlayStation systems if they're available for both. Um, and so honestly, I'm a little afraid of that. Microsoft also seems to want to get a piece of that pie that Apple is eating with their products, iPod Touch, iPhone, iPad, and I think like Kinect is one of those systems where it could possibly work, but you just don't get the same level of control with waving your hands around as you would with an actual controller, which is why of the two, Move, Kinect, I would definitely buy the Move. I've been very tempted to pick up the Move. The only reason I haven't is because I have told myself that if I buy a Move, I'm going to buy Heavy Rain too. Heavy Rain's still a $55 game, so I'm looking at $150 if I pick up a Move. And that's just one for the one Move controller, which supposedly you really need to get that second Move controller for some of the games that support it. But that's the other weird part, is that there really aren't that very many games currently out that support Move that I'm going to want to play. And the same thing for the Kinect. I think there's some games that came out on the Wii that if they ported them over, No More Heroes, maybe Mad World, depending on what I think when I play it. There's Fragile Dreams, which I kind of talked about with the flashlight, which you can't really do with the Kinect, but you can do with the Move. No More Heroes, again, you can do it with the Move. You couldn't really do it with the Kinect. So I'm afraid Microsoft's going to jump on that bandwagon of let's go for casual gamers, let's try to get them in. And I think even before the Kinect came out, you could see that with some of their marketplace games, like Kingdom for Keflings, which I thought was really fun. But they're kind of going for that Avatar, which I think really takes after the Wii's. I forget what the Mii's, is that what they're called? So I'm a little afraid about that. I'm afraid about not being able to play my old games when my 360 boots up, which I'm afraid one day it's going to. So, it's going to be like the PlayStation 2 where I just have to buy another one just to make sure that I can still play those games. Which, I've got my original, it's white, it doesn't really match my stereo or my PlayStation 3. My Wii's white, but I don't really want to move it down on the Wii platform, so I don't know. But it's came out with some really great games. I think that there's some other games in the works that are 360 exclusive that I can't think of at the moment. Gears of War 3. And I'm sure there's going to be others because console exclusives are not done. Maybe in a couple of years, hopefully. We'll see. So yeah, that makes me a little afraid. But overall, I'm happy with my purchase of a 360. Just because those handful of games that I got right when the system came out, that just aren't available on the PlayStation 3, they just really got me. And quite honestly, I could stop with my 360 collection and be pretty happy with what I've got. So that's kind of the roundup. Well, and I guess one thing I said I was going to talk about in the introduction, and I didn't end up doing, was the downloadable games. And so I guess I could briefly talk about that. Xbox Live's had a lot of really good downloadable games. And I'm going to have a hard time remembering much outside of, like, Shadow of the Colossus. Braid came out first, which I'm on the fence about because I thought it was a good game, but I also thought it was a little challenging. But I got everything but the speedrun, so thanks to a guide, which I don't mind him saying that I did that because I think it's got a really good story. It's got a nice little nice ending to it. I don't want to spoil anything. But Shadow of the Colossus was great. Reminds me of Super Metroid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night. That's all I guess I can really think at the moment. That's exclusive to the 360. I'm sure there's others that I'm just not thinking of. But that was definitely one system where I started picking up DLC. For the PlayStation, I didn't, but it was also because of the games at the time just didn't have DLC that you could really buy. Cross Edge maybe was around that time, and there was a ton of DLC for that. And obviously Fallout 3, I got it for the 360 first, so I got the DLC for that. It's definitely the generation of DLC, which is why the Wii doesn't really fit in this generation. But they got Virtual Console, but it's not really add-ons. You can't patch games, so when the new Metroid game is broken, you gotta mail in your little your game saves. You can't even upload them. But yeah, it's also the generation where I've sold a lot more games. I Don't get me wrong, I've bought a lot of PS2 games. I've sold probably half the PS2 games that I've ever purchased. Um, but I don't know what it is, but it seems like the 360 just doesn't have games that hold me, games that I want to keep in my collection because one day I might go back and play it. Um, it just doesn't have that many games, and it might just be because I'm not looking hard enough. I'm not looking at the right genres. I missed out because when I purchased my 360, but I think it also might have something to do with the fact that the 360 just isn't as popular in Japan, and it ends up that a lot of the games that I buy were initially released in Japan, and then however many months later they come out in the States. And that's certainly not all of them, but I'm an RPG person because of the length of the story and gameplay, but definitely because of the story. And I think you miss the story on a lot of Western games. They're more about just action, action, action. Really fun games, don't get me wrong, but the story just generally isn't the strongest that you can find. So, and that's kind of why I play video games, for escape, to be part of a really good story. That's it's an alternative for books where instead of just laying back and reading, I'm actually doing something, using my mind to try to figure out puzzles. It's an interactive story. So yeah, 360 definitely worth the price of admission, but be interesting to see what happens if they win and what the next generation for Microsoft looks like, and hopefully we'll have backward support so that I can continue to play the great games that are in my collection. So, thanks for watching the series. If you did, if you didn't, you should go back and watch them. Thanks.